Okay, let's unpack this. You've brought us some really fascinating source material today. We're diving into a topic that, well, on the surface, feels like two completely different worlds. Mysticism and science.
Right, they often seem poles apart, don't they?
Totally. But this material, it takes a rather, let's say, cosmic view. It suggests they aren't opposing forces at all.
Not locked in some eternal battle.
Exactly. The source uses this great image, calls them two powerful wings of the same soaring dragon.
I like that. It immediately shifts the perspective, doesn't it? From conflict to interdependence. Like, you need both wings to actually fly.
Precisely. So our mission here in this deep dive is to explore how this source argues science and mysticism aren't just, compatible, but actually essential for really getting a full grasp of reality.
And potentially bridgeable.
Yeah, bridgeable. So get ready for some perhaps surprising connections, especially when we look at, like, cutting-edge science right next to ancient wisdom.
It really challenges that old idea that you have to choose one or the other.
It absolutely pushes back on that. So let's start there, setting up this perceived divide. Because for ages, humans have mostly kept science and mysticism pretty separate. You've got science over here, all about meticulous measurements, experiments you can verify, objective data. It wants to break things down, reduce phenomena to the smallest bits to figure out the how.
Like particles, fields, the nuts and bolts, the approach is fundamentally dissection analysis.
Right. And then in the other corner, you have mysticism.
Yeah.
That's the realm of intuitive insights, spiritual experiences, stuff you can't easily measure the unseen.
Its drive is more towards unity, right? Trying to grasp the why or the what for behind it all, thinking in terms of consciousness, spirit, oneness.
Yeah, its approach is about unification.
And the common story we tell ourselves is that they're warring factions, always at odds.
But this is where the source gets really interesting. It argues the deepest truths. They're not found strictly in science or in mysticism.
Where the?
In the liminal space between them, that kind of boundary zone where logic meets wonder, where intuition finds a certain elegance, maybe even a mathematical echo.
Ah, so it's not just coexistence, but that real understanding emerges from their interaction.
Exactly. And the source actually points to people who seem to act as these bridge builders.
Okay.
It specifically mentions the work of Dr. DeMartini. The material suggests his work on universal laws really operates in this liminal space.
Oh, so?
Well, it describes his principles as governing both the visible, measurable world and the invisible subjective realm, verifiable through, both empirical observation and deep inner experience. He talks about the balance in the universe, interconnectedness, the power of perception.
Concepts that resonate with both sides.
Right. You hear echoes in ancient wisdom, but the source also suggests connections to things like quantum physics. It's showing how subjective meaning can actually align with objective principles if you look right.
It's like finding a common language, a language both wings of that dragon understand, revealing patterns that hold true whether you're looking at an equation or having a profound feeling.
Well put. Let's dive into some specific examples the source uses, starting with science. It goes straight into quantum physics, the science of the really small stuff, and points out how its findings sound remarkably well.
Mystical.
Yeah, exactly. Particles being in multiple places at once, observation influencing reality, the universe being way more interconnected, less solid, less predictable than we thought.
And the source basically asks, how is this not echoing some ancient mystical ideas?
Right, like the illusion of separation, consciousness shaping reality, that underlying unity.
Yeah, the material flags that specifically conscious attention, observation, seeming to collapse possibilities into a single reality. That sounds so much like the power of focused intention you hear about in mystical traditions.
It's almost like, the scientist is measuring the dragon's breath, getting the data, the temperature.
While the mystic feels the warmth on their face, gets the essence of it.
Exactly. And you need both descriptions to really understand the dragon, right?
Precisely. Okay, so now let's flip it. Turning to mysticism, the source talks about those really profound inner experiences, moments of oneness, intuitive flashes that just seem to bypass logic.
Stuff that, let's be honest, rigid science often dismisses as just subjective, maybe even delusion.
But here's the twist. Neuroscience is actually starting to take these seriously. It's becoming a subject of real inquiry.
And that's the bridge coming from the other direction, isn't it? Neuroscience is mapping brain activity during meditation, altered states, peak experiences.
Providing objective correlations, measurable data, like brain scans, physiological changes for these subjective states.
So the experience might be personal, but the fact that something measurable is happening, That validates them as real phenomena, real things happening in our reality.
Even if we're still debating the ultimate meaning or source, it shows the mystic's journey isn't just, all in their head dismissively. There are real, complex brain processes corresponding to these states.
Okay, so pulling this all together, what's the main takeaway the source wants us to get?
Well, it seems to be that you really need both perspectives, because reality is just incredibly multifaceted, and frankly, our human perception is limited from any single viewpoint.
Yeah, that makes sense. Science, the source says, gives you the detailed map of the terrain, shows you the features, the mechanisms, the precise how.
And mysticism, it provides the compass, guiding you towards deeper meaning, purpose, showing you the interconnectedness you might miss just looking at the map. It points towards the why.
So the source suggests you need both the map's detail and the compass's direction to really navigate.
Absolutely. And it warns about relying on just one.
Right. Science alone risks becoming dry, mechanistic, maybe missing the wonder, the meaning, the whole issue of consciousness itself.
And mysticism alone, that risks drifting into, well, maybe delusion, unverified ideas, becoming disconnected from practical reality.
But the real transformation, the source argues, happens when they inform each other. When the scientist's discovery fills the mystic with awe and the mystic's insight sparks a scientific question.
Seeking the science behind the intuition and the wonder within the science.
That's where you unlock this holistic understanding. You start seeing, as the source puts it, the divine order in the atom and the scientific precision in the spiritual awakening.
It's about becoming whole yourself, integrating the objective and subjective, the measurable and immeasurable.
Just like reality seems to be. It's really a call to move beyond this artificial split we've created.
Embrace a more complete view.
So this deep dive really leaves us feeling that instead of an either science or mysticism, a much richer understanding comes from embracing both, what the source calls that unified gaze.
A unified gaze. I like that.
And to help you, the listener, actually practice developing this, the material offers a practical exercise. Calls it the Dragon Trial.
Intriguing name. So putting both wings into action yourself.
Pretty much. The suggestion is straightforward. Pick a complex concept you find genuinely interesting. Could be consciousness, infinity, love, time, free will, the universe's origin, stuff like that.
Okay, pick a big topic. Then what?
First step. Approach it scientifically. What do facts, logic, evidence, theories tell you? What's measurable? So for consciousness, maybe you'd look into neuroscience, brain activity, emergence theories.
Got it. The map view.
Then second step, switch gears. Approach it mystically or intuitively. What is your gut feeling, your inner knowing say? What insights pop up when you just contemplate it? Maybe draw on spiritual ideas, philosophy, personal experiences. What's its deeper meaning?
The compass view for the same topic. Consciousness as universal awareness, soul interconnectedness, that kind of thing.
Exactly. And then the final, crucial step, synthesis. How do these two views complement each other? Where do they overlap? Can you hold both perspectives at the same time without conflict?
Not forcing one into the other's box, but seeing how they enrich the whole picture together.
That's the goal. Training yourself in that unified gaze. Seeing how combining them deepens your understanding way beyond what either one could do alone.
It's really an invitation to experience that harmony the source is describing firsthand.
So this deep dive really invites you to consider, what complex concept are you ready to take on in your own dragon trial? Exploring it through both the lens of logic and the lens of intuition.